Like I said, it's on paper. You can have it.
So if you hear from Danny Weaver. Oh, we're not backing down because that's their problem. We tried to out.
Well, the ribbon Tuesday, it's Thursday, so they didn't get in. I'll give them a ticket.
Yeah, so.
We need to talk to them. We should tell them to not.
Council.
Not yet, I didn't, she wasn't in our.
We want to talk about safety.
I went around, so.
So Vern. Over there. And so I'm filling in for item, he was gonna talk about the training guy. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Let me, have any questions? Pretty much have that answered. And,
I scheduled the 1 o'clock for going across town before I knew he was, you know, an
so we're meeting with a
integral part.
bunch of attorneys, and so I have to leave with her anyway, so it won't be that I'm attended.
So it's not like that. Hey, didn't you used to work for the city? Is there anything you could do for the, about the trains and all?
Yeah.
Well, it's all the classes for updated things. What's nice? Okay.
It's been 3/4 of Vern's calls the past 2 weeks.
We're going to meet with our delegation to say, look, they need to do warnings.
I can't even imagine.
When I was down there the other day, it was like they were laughing at us. Which, fire department. So,
I've been doing the
Because I
training,
ignored
it's annoying.
they're just honking all the time.
Absolutely crazy, so. I'm against it, but I think they're overdoing it. Issue is compliance, not safety. It's a real safety issue, if you get it. Some of the things they look at is where all the failures are, is when you have the, island in the middle and it has a plowable intersection, where the gates come down and have 6 inches high. Some of those are 5 3/8 elevations. So you have to tear out the intersection and do them. So it's not safer, it's just compliant. So it's just.
We really start from this year, because
There's only 2 of us.
three. Dave Joy.
I'm here,
Yeah.
and we have Greg online too, so we're. Channel 17, if you.
Oh, Joy's here.
Oh, Joy's here, okay.
I feel joy when Joy's here.
Channel 17, please go ahead, start recording. Joy. We're gonna stick to the same order on the list. All right, let me share our agenda. Yes, please, go ahead.
Welcome, everyone, to our October TMAC meeting. We will start with introductions. I am Joy McMurray, TMAC Chair.
Gordon Hay with Provo Public Works.
Joseph Gandy with Provo Public Works.
Steve Johnson, Public Works.
Will Gordon, TMAC member.
TMAC member.
As province TMAC member.
Bowden Golding, Development Services.
Sandy Bushill, Development Services.
Provo resident.
Aaron Ardmore, Development Services.
Hey, Han Schwer, Provo Public Works.
Great, thank you. First item of business is approving minutes from September. Oh, sorry, online. Who do we have online?
Oh yeah, we have Greg.
I'm Greg McFarland, TMAC member.
Sorry, Greg, thank you. So minutes from September.
Move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Next, Gordon, we're so glad you can see us today. Thank you. I'd like to excuse Vern, he was double booked today. Gordon's going to give us a railroad quiet zone update. And I'll be getting some emails about that and phone calls too.
Yes, and Vern is actually the expert, so I am just a memo from him, and I'm gonna try to explain what's going on a little bit. So, city has been sending out posts about the railroad crossing, about the horn blowing, and it's been a real disruption to a lot of residents. So we recognize it being really bad. So if you look at this map, you can see where the little blue circles are, those are quiet zones that have now all been officially unquieted. We initially thought that maybe by the end of November, the repairs would all be done. There was an initial inspection by FRA that came out and found half a dozen violations between Salt Lake City and Provo. None of those were in Provo. And if any one of those are out, the whole stretch has to have the horn blowing. It's a great railroad rule. We think that's the way it should be. Sarcasm, that needs to go on the record. But they came out and did a second inspection and found another half dozen. And so talking to those municipalities, particularly the ones up in Salt Lake County, it looks like those won't get done later, after the new year, and maybe even a little bit longer. So we don't have kind of a finish date. We've gone out and re-inspected all of our crossings just to verify we are not going to be the problem, because we feel that cavalier about doing to others, and none of ours are bad. So we're in good shape, so our audience is justified.
We won't be hypocrites. Everyone's good.
But it is going to extend through the new year, which is bad. Any questions?
Is that a federal law?
It's a
FRA.
policy. So it's not a law, it's a policy. So the picture's split. I don't know if that.
These are two different.
Yeah, we did. There was a split. It was south one.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's not a law per se. They just have and that's why we're going to work with our delegation a little bit to see if they could change their policy, do more threatening warning letters, specific municipalities or to whoever they need to do that, as opposed to just bringing the hammer.
Everyone.
There's another option. Provo has the ability, to go through a bunch of paperwork, to break ourselves off from the rest of everybody. You don't necessarily want to do that, but that may be a consideration. So we don't have this happen again.
So Gordon, I guess I'm curious if you can speak a little bit to were these non-compliant intersections, was this a surprise that like, were there new FRA design guidelines that came out and these cities just didn't update their intersections to comply with them? Was it FRA updated them and didn't tell them? Was it FRA's inspectors that we got this time were more strict than in the past? Like, Like, we've had this quiet zone for 9 years now. Why this all of a sudden?
So there was an update to their standard, and from my understanding is there was a letter that went out to everybody to get stuff up to standard. I think it went out like 2 years ago. Some of the cities did it. Provo did it. We went out and fixed that. Most of the municipalities did. Like I said, they found a half a dozen minor issues, and that in their inspection. But again, it was a pretty austere process. And again, they've done it nationwide. So Utah's not picked on. There's cities all over the country that are suffering, and some are going to take longer than ours. So I think if these, and I was telling everybody here before we went on, I don't believe these are actually safety issues. I think they're compliance. What the biggest violation is that we have plowable nose in-sections to our islands. Where the gate comes down, it has to be 6 inches. In some of these places, that plowable in-section there is 6 inches, but then it dives down. And so one of them was 5 3/4 inch. That was considered a violation. And I get it's a violation, but is it enough that you should stop the quiet zone or just send another fierce letter and get people in compliance? So I think the policy shouldn't be going one letter, then no quiet zones. I think there's a better process to go get there.
Well, in my conversation with Vern about this, he suggested that the FRA initially sent a letter in the summer, and that there was a deadline of October, and Provo had its stuff done by then, but the other municipalities didn't. Is that familiar with you understand, or was I misunderstanding Vern?
Vern's going to be more on it than I am, but yeah.
Okay. I guess there's FRA's policies, and these can be sort of arbitrary or quickly changing or austere, as you said. That's one thing. But I think what I'm most worried about, or what annoys me most about this situation, is that Provo seemed to have its stuff done in time, and the other cities that we're partnering with on this quiet zone didn't. And it's annoying to me that Provo city residents are being woken up because we have more residents living at the train line than other cities do. So we had a strong incentive to keep this quiet zone going, whereas I don't know, Murray or whatever city didn't do this. I don't know if it's Murray. Maybe Murray's fine. Maybe they have less incentive to do this quickly because they don't have apartment buildings immediately next to the tracks at the crossings. And it seems like if we have so many people living this close to the rail, we might benefit from having our own quiet zone that we maintain without the partnership of maybe less reliable partners.
Yeah, so that's something we're going to consider. It takes a while to do the paperwork to get that done.
Sure. Yeah.
So it'll take a little over a year plus to do all that work, but we're now contemplating doing that. So that's where we are today.
How invasive is it? How often or how loud is it, and when is it loud?
How do you not heard it?
I'm about
we
as
have trains
deep
all
as
through
you
the
get
night.
in Provo.
So the real problem, Joy, is the front runner trains that start running at around 4 a.m. During the peak hour, a train is coming in each direction about 15 minutes. And so a very loud train horn goes off immediately next to like the startup crossing apartments, for instance, every 15 minutes starting at 4 a.m. and going until midnight. It's a problem.
And then you also we have Amtrak that runs one every night, goes through, plus any freight trains that go through have to do it. So we have it all through the night, all through the day. It's horrible. It is really. Oh, this is the one responsible for the train horn. And he can explain why he hasn't fixed it yet.
Approved, effort.
I set you up well, Vern.
He's discussing most of it. Now we're mostly just complaining that it's so horrible.
That is awful.
And there's nothing legislators can do.
I told them you'd get it done by Christmas, so.
Did you say Halloween?
So Vern, remind us, you know, Greg wants to name names and which cities are not in compliance. And it seems like when we discussed this before, there wasn't a super long window to be able to take, or was there a long window to take the remedial actions? It's just not, and I remember talking to some of the cities, it wasn't as easy as just repaving, it was actually installation of new medians in order to make this, so it, and getting contractors sometimes to do the work, especially when you're dealing with the railroad permitting process within their right of way. Sometimes that takes almost an act of Congress to be able to do that work within the right of way. So I don't know if that compounds the issue or.
Yeah, it certainly does. We had a deadline of middle of July to complete the improvements. And I think the FRA called the bluff of many cities that didn't have their improvements done by mid-July. We had ours done here in Provo City by then. We had a few communities that did not have those improvements completed. And then what happened is the FRA came out and did another inspection, and they found 5 more crossings that were out of compliance. Why they can't just do one inspection and identify everything at once, I'm not sure. But we're not pleased with the FRA. I will just say that the law is the law, even though we have 5 3/4 inches at one crossing. This one's in South Jordan. It's got to be 6 inches where the gate comes down. It's 5 3/4 because they did an overlay this year, and it caught us on 1/4 of an inch. So that right there would put the entire quiet zone out of reach or out of jeopardy, out of compliance from Provo, Salt Lake. The good news is we're really close. We got one crossing that needs to be done up in Salt Lake City. If we can close an access to a business that has 4 of them already, I think we can get re-inspected by the end of November. And I'm optimistic. So I'm going to tell everybody the end of the year, first of the year, right? But I'm optimistic that if we can get that one crossing fixed, we could have the quiet zone reestablished by Thanksgiving.
What's the logic for not breaking it down in smaller, like if this zone is, why does everyone have to have the noise?
Lisa, good question. I think what we see is that the Front Runner project for Front Runner South was completed from Salt Lake City to Provo in 2012. And so the entire quiet zone is one big quiet zone. And each crossing you get points for that has to be above the threshold that if they blew the horn at every crossing. So they've come up with this safety index. And it's pretty complicated, but we get points for certain crossings. And the maximum number of points we can get is like 13 or 15. We had quad gates and they raised medians, I think we can get up to 15. Most of them are 13-point crossings. And that's why the entire quiet zone was one, is because there are certain crossings that we get no credit for. All we got is lights and gates. We don't have medians, we don't have other safety devices. And so you lump it all into one big crossing, the point totals work better that way. But the disadvantage is you get one community that's stubborn and doesn't do their proper maintenance, the whole quiet zone's out of compliance.
I think Greg's point that some communities have less motivation than ours because they don't have residents that are bothered by it.
Yeah, Orem's a prime example. Orem hardly, I talked to their public works director this week and he's getting almost 0 complaints and we get 12 calls a day. Easy.
Is it different for college kids and they don't really mind as much as it runs through, or do you think your actual home being like you're stating start, I know Greg mentioned start of apartments right across, like what about those lower income neighborhoods? Are they the ones?
Yeah.
Like the older.
Everybody downtown.
I think it's my neighborhood that's complaining.
Your neighborhood is complaining. We can hear them all the
We're not even
way.
next to the traffic, but it just echoes off the mountain.
I live 3.5 miles from the tracks and I still hear the trains. So they're just all over. I mean, it's affected tens of thousands of people from Provo to Salt Lake.
Over relatively small violations.
Right. But we're gonna get those fixed. Woods Cross will be, another story. That was done in 2008 for Front Runner North. When I was a consultant, I approached Woods Cross about 3 years ago and told them they were majorly out of compliance with their crossings. Just didn't care. And so they will be out of compliance for at least 6 months.
That's the one that's been in the news, but they're in the news zone, right?
They're not in our zone. They're Salt Lake to Ogden, so they will be putting up with storms for much longer.
So would it be advantageous to actually look for having Provo be?
It would be, but it will take some major improvements to our crossings, because I will tell you, 500 West, 700 West, 900 West, and 200 West was not, they didn't get any credits for the improvements that we've done. They have some deficiencies, but when you lump all of them together, we qualify for the quiet zone. If I were to pull out just Provo, we would not qualify for a quiet zone as is now. Which we are going to see with the double tracking of Front Runner is going to occur in about 2 or 3 years. And so that work, when they double track that, I'm going to require that those crossings be upgraded to full quiet zone compliance.
Then that point, I know saying, hey, apply for quiet.
At that point, it sets us up where we could do that, yes.
Hey, let's go ahead and move on. Thank you so much, Mary. Sandy, let's have our micromobility update.
Yeah, it was last year that TJ came and talked to all of us about the Bird Scooter program. So this is just kind of a quick update.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so as we talked about last year, and it's still the same, the electric scooters that you can rent from Bird that are on the street have a maximum speed of 15 miles an hour, and the bikes have a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. It's kind of right now with how fast privately owned ones are going. The Bird actually is kind of a better deal. And we did sign the contract, a 24-month contract back in 2022 in October. So that contract is up. So now it's just, we'll just continually go with it unless one party decides, you know, we no longer want Bird, or we want to send out an RFP, or if Bird no longer wants to operate in Provo. Right now, everything seems to be going great. I had a meeting with him yesterday. So we're still going along with them. Right now, Provo City receives 15 cents per ride. We get a monthly check from Bird. When we get to the amounts of monies that we've collected, prior to June 1st, and Bird going through bankruptcy, this was 35 cents per mile. And we actually got $50,000 per year. During their bankruptcy, we renegotiated with them, or they renegotiated with us, and we've actually brought that down to 15 cents per ride and $20,000 per year, which is more of the industry standard. They just could not continue with the contract as written. They do help with our lower income individuals, our senior citizens, students with Pell Grants, and veterans can apply and get pricing, a lower pricing for when they rent these Bird scooters and bikes. So they really do help with the community. Couple things. When you first get on a Bird scooter, it kind of tells you the rules. We try to make people aware that they're not supposed to be on sidewalks. Bird encourages helmets. We don't require it. Riding responsible is encouraged. We do the best that we can. As they park their scooter and their bike, they're supposed to take a photo and send it into Bird. And Bird also provides a 24-hour customer service. There's their phone number, email, online form. They have been pretty responsive when we've had issues. And truth be told, I have not had any issues escalate to me in the last several months. So I'm taking that as a positive. Okay, geofencing, just real quick. Bird scooters are not allowed on Brigham Young University campus. It is geofenced around. During the football games, that geofence goes out, so you cannot even get as close to campus as you can on a regular day. And this also includes the temple and churches owned by the LDS Church. Provo School District does not allow it on their properties, nor New Skin on theirs. And we have geofenced a lot of Center Street recently, trying to keep these scooters and the bikes going a lot slower, if not at all on the sidewalks on Center. Just trying to keep them for pedestrians. We've put new signs up. And on Center Street, with a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit, they should be on the road with the vehicles. Yes.
Sandy, is it that sensitive where, because we had the Shero on the outside lane. There is a whole parking spot between the outside lane and the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Is the geofencing that sensitive to make sure that it's prohibited on the sidewalk but permitted on that travel lane?
Yes, their geofencing is pretty amazing. Lisa, you experienced their geofencing when you were doing, you said on that bike how it just kind of goes down.
Oh, we were at that four-way stop, by the RV in the bottom of campus, and all of a sudden everyone just came to it. It was actually halfway between, the Construction Canyon Road segment and that four-way stop. Everybody lost it, and then we were about halfway from the four-way stop to Brick Oven, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, it's working again, so.
And it's not an abrupt stop where it's gonna throw you. It
just
slows down and
it
just goes to.
stop, and so you just slow to.
Yeah. So the technology actually works really well, and honestly, we are trying to get the geofencing off of Brigham Young University campus, or they are, Bird is, but Brigham Young is not budging allowing these scooters or bikes on their campus.
Do you think every church is also geofenced?
They're claiming it is.
Okay.
And I have not, the last call that I got from the LDS Church was we had to tweak the geofencing at the underground temple parking lot on Center Street, because the kids were finding they could push the scooters through the geofencing and then get into that underground parking lot. And that's been, I'll bet, a year ago.
Okay.
So, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. Let's just be honest.
Does the church not think that people will use the scooters to arrive at church to worship?
I think they can arrive and stay on the city sidewalk. I don't think they want them in their parking lots.
I guess the liability thing for BYU too, that if you leave them there, if you bring your own, you're gonna lock it up because you care about it. If you rent one, you'll leave it anywhere and it becomes a nuisance and a liability.
True, but remember, whoever's renting them, the last known person will be liable. Plus, we have a big insurance policy that they've provided on these scooters and e-bikes. So that's, I mean, it's a pretty good one. Yes, it does. Okay, this is just kind of a fun map. This is actually, you can see where it starts and where it stops, where the rides start and where the rides stop. These scooters and e-bikes are used all over Provo. And you can see, you know, Brigham Young University, you can see that black hole, that's the geofence and everything, and they are used frequently.
Red is the stop.
They're blue is the start and the red's the end. Now, I got this information last night at this morning at 2 a.m. In 3 months, there's been 1,873 commuter trips. A commuter trip has to meet 2 primary criteria. The first is a route often taken by a user And the second criteria is this is occurring during rush hour. Rush hour is from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So a lot of people are using this before and after work. It's not just students, but the average rider's age is between 18 and 53, but the majority, of course, is those in their 20s and 30s. So they're being used by everyone. And so this is what I had. So between last year and the end of September, October 1st, there was a total of 43,988 rides. The average distance is a 1.44 miles per ride. So these are end of trip or beginning of trip. And the revenue share, this is not the annually ride share because we haven't got it yet because we get that at the end of October, has been $11,711.
Bikes and scooters, right? What? That's bikes and scooters?
Yes, yes, that's from Bird. I don't differentiate when we send that invoice to them.
You have the data on percentage bikes versus percentage scooters as far as the miles?
I don't. I know that for a long time during bankruptcy, we did not have a lot of bikes. We just had the scooters. Now it seems like we have an overabundance of bikes, and we're trying to, in the winter or the fall as it gets colder, we find that people ride scooters more than they ride bikes. So it's a balancing act, yeah.
I don't know why there would be a preference. No.
They say the scooters are used more than the bikes, and I think it's just, again, the 20-year-olds. You know, it's easier to hop on a scooter and just go. Yeah, but I don't. Again, when I do it, I just look at the number of rides, and then I times how much our ride share should be, and that's what we invoice. But Bird has come out of bankruptcy. They've actually been kept, they're up to date on their payments to Provo City, so it's been very encouraging. So again, that's where we're at.
Can you back to the slide? There's a ton of points, 10 points in Orem.
Yeah.
Is Orem planning on picking this up as well? Or are these people going into Orem and then dropping them off and then doesn't show any start points there? So who goes and collects all the scooters?
Bird does.
Every night. Like they're just going
Yeah.
and picking them all back up. So these are people who used to it. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out just people living up in there. They go home at the end of the day.
And Orem has Bird. Orem has Bird scooters as well.
And all
So-
the same network. I'm just trying to figure out how those people who are, that's their destination, they're taking another one and they're dropping it off in Provo.
Mm-hmm.
The Orem has a different map than opposite.
Yeah, but they do go and they do collect them. But yeah, I always thought that was weird when I'd see Bird up in Orem, but then they told me they are in Orem.
Thank you, Sandy, for not only showing the presentation, but it takes a really good negotiating skills with Bird to keep them here and lower our costs. I think you and your team are to be complimented for that. I'd much rather have them here than not. And I think that, you know, they went through, I don't think any scooter company right now is profitable, according to what I read. Hopefully one day they will be. But this is, thank you for keeping them here. Thank you for renegotiating the contract. And the information is awesome to have.
But they're, like I said, they're pretty good, so.
Is there an overall geo fence? Can they just keep going until it runs out of juice? At the limits as far as how far they're going up the canyon there, I'm just wondering. Or is there a geo fence that says past this limit, we're just not gonna?
Yes, they geofence up the canyon, and I think the reason they don't geofence into Orem is because Orem has Bird scooters, so it just kind of you know what I mean? It just kind of blends together, which is really great for us because with the students, you know, back and forth and everything such as that, but they can only go for so far up the canyon. I believe I've seen them up to Bridal Veil, but I don't really pay a lot of attention to that. But that's usually a long way to ride. But we do have a lot of Springville. They can't ride them into Springville. I've had complaints from people that are right there on that border, and this is their only transportation to and from work, and it'll stop them right at a certain point. But there's nothing we can do about that because Bird doesn't want them in a city that probably hasn't been authorized.
You adjust that geofence to a bus stop so they're not left stranded.
If it's in Provo, but they should know that. I mean, before they get on a scooter, they'll know that they can't go in, so they really aren't stranded per se, because they're picking them up at one point and riding them, and so they can go back to the point that they're at. And then whatever other transportation, whether it be walking or bus stop or what have you, but they have to stay in Provo and Oro.
Maybe any final questions, or we're gonna move on? Okay. Aaron.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today. Aaron's going to talk to us about our stationary plans. Greg has been the TMAC rep, I think, working with you on that.
Yeah, I apologize Hannah's not here because she would do a much, much better job than I would about going through these. But she's at a sustainability conference. So I'm trying to cover. But basically, I plan to just show certain pages, and if there's questions or discussion, we can go from there. So it looks like we'll start with this 2230 plan. Let me go to, and I'm going to start with the land use and kind of go into the transportation details. Here is the land use plan for this station, 2230 North University Parkway. So you can see kind of through this process, we've identified within a quarter mile of users that would need a land use change. So you can see the key down there. So the state is requiring a lot of this. I don't know how much background this group has on this, but the state is requiring all the cities to do this with these fixed stations. So on 2230, we've identified a lot of change of use, but a lot of it's already actually on the ground. So that benefits us in a lot of these areas. But you can see how residential gets a little bit more dense in these quarter mile sections. And I think pertinent to this committee is the transportation network would kind of follow that. So let me go down on aspects of what we see as needed improvements as these plans get implemented and adopted by the state. So you could see more visual crossings, more accessibility for bikes. We've promoted or proposed enhancements to the stations themselves in some areas. Stop me if you have any questions. But this is kind of the network that we're looking at for this one. So the linkages are important here. So this linkage going up through the mixed development is a pretty easy one to see working through right now. This is going to require some effort and partners and money to get this neighborhood to be able to come down that hill in a safe way to access this station. And then as you looked at the hospitality, we are encouraging hospitality uses down here, creating a path to get from those hospitality uses to the station there. And if ever, we love the car dealerships here, they're a good tax revenue. If they ever decide to find a different place in Provo, there's a plan to incorporate commercial and housing on those lots and create that network there.
With all of these plans, the primary goals are increasing access
So yeah,
to the station.
so mixed use density of residential uses, and then access mobility. Those are some of the major goals from the state on these areas. You can see here, this is a pretty big vision to try to get another pedestrian bridge, but it'd be very useful across this wide of a roadway. Again, a lot of these things are kind of pie in the sky right now, but if we don't put a plan down, then we're not going to be able to eventually finance it. So first step is getting the plan in an adopted version, and then we can start working on the tools to get us there financially.
I just wanted to highlight that we also talked about a tunnel at that location potentially. It's a good.
Thanks.
The real problem is pedestrian access to that bus station is not very good, and it should be improved. How we go about doing that is requires further study.
Right. Thank you for adding that. So that is 230. So you'll see similar. Yes, please.
I wanted to know if there's any enforcement of plan versus, I think, like the state requires the plan.
State requires the plan,
but
and then the zone changes. So the state's going to follow up and make sure that we're also implementing the zone changes that the plan's proposing before December 2025.
So that map that you showed doesn't have a lot of zone changes because most of it's already like that?
That one does have some, especially on the west side of University Parkway, and then kind of the southeast portion of that quarter mile. The mix kind of took care of a lot of that portion, but the southeast and the west would still need some zone changes.
And so they don't just want the plan, they actually have some sort of...
They want to see the cities are doing more than putting on a shelf. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is this something that then needs to be adopted by the city council?
It will be, yeah.
Is that the next step?
So we just got all these final drafts back from SOMAS, who was our consultant on this. So Anna and other members of our team are going to kind of refine these, take them through the public process of planning commission, city council, and then MAG approval and all that. So trying to get all done by December 2025. So adopt the plans first and then follow up with the zone changes. Over here, front runner. Here's the front runner station. This one has two stations. So you see the quarter mile around the 4th South station, and then the half mile for the actual front runner commuter. You'll see a lot more change here, not specifically downtown. A lot of the DT zones and ITOD zone allow for this mix of uses, so we're okay there. But once you come south of the tracks, there's a bit of change here. You can see open green space networks that try to make better connections for people commuting by bike or pedestrian to the station. And then implementing land uses, medium density, low density, kind of home, townhome type densities as you get further away.
How do you do these zone changes? I mean, you can change the zone on those properties that some cities aren't willing to cooperate right now. So how do you enact a plan there?
So the city has a history of just proactively rezoning people's properties. That's
all you have to do.
If it gets that, that's what we'll do. And then you'll see a lot of the same recommendations here, but because we're here at the front runner station, a much more intense network of buffer bike lane, shared use paths, pedestrian linkages would have to come through this area. And a lot of that is going to be queued by redevelopment, right? So the city doesn't have the money to go and put all these in, right, Vern? So it's going to be dependent on people redeveloping the sites and doing their portion of it as they redevelop. So this is something similar to what you see on Center Street, these kind of stamped crosswalks that give indication and priority to pedestrians crossing the street. Those are a relatively easy thing to do out of some of these suggestions in the plans, and could be kind of a first phase. This one gets into the future redevelopment of the actual UDOT site. They've talked for years about redeveloping into apartments here and doing structured parking as they take the surface parking away to provide the same amount of stalls.
How full are those parking lots typically?
Kind of about what you see
What
right
we're
now,
gonna do.
3/4, yeah.
Okay.
This one indicates truck routes. This is a kind of a tricky area of getting trucks to these industrial services on 6 South and across the street on 920. So just identifying kind of best practices of how the trucks would get into and get out of that area with these. Let me jump to the next one. Joaquin. Somas. And specifically, Christian at Somas, this is like his favorite thing to do when he does any of these plans is to do these renderings. And we love that he's done them. I think it gives a very conceptual vision, but a good vision of what this could be in the years to come.
Program is called Lumen, and I hired Christian to work for me as a consultant, and he worked 2 years for me before he went to Somas. Couldn't keep him here. He wanted to do the Lumen full time instead of transportation. He wanted to get into the land use and traffic.
In this Joaquin one, you can see how it kind of respects what we've already have adopted with the Joaquin neighborhood plan. That hard line at 5th North, just a drop in density as you cross south there. So keeping that as is and concentrating the density, just like the neighborhood plan has north of 5th North and densifying as it gets closer to the BYU campus. This one has some interesting concepts on the network here. There was even an idea of cutting down 800 North through this section to be non-auto. So there's some pretty big ideas on this walking station plan. But again, the enhancements to the crosswalks, enhanced lighting, and you can see there is that vision I was talking about, close to vehicles, and how that would work, and going through making sure that this is one of the most dense communities in the state, right? So pedestrian counts and everything are really high through here. So we went pretty big with the ideas. So
I think it's worth. I just want to highlight this was listed there. The idea with cutting down the vehicles on 800 North was also moving the UVX line to use 800 North instead of 700 North.
Okay, I was gonna say, you've got to provide an alternate east-west route, then you just cannot do that.
Right.
yeah, so that's a big
700
thing.
North.
Sorry, Greg.
No, yeah. So in this concept, 700 North would go back to being more of an arterial, and 800 North would be closed to vehicles, but it would support the UVX better. And then the UVX would drop people off much closer to BYU, and you'd remove a lot of the pedestrian conflicts along 800. There's a lot to like about this idea, but it is more out there than some of the other ones that were put forward.
What should have been done in the first place, in my opinion, but
Yeah.
I'm just one person.
I like that.
And we'll have to think.
I
if
agree
this
with that,
ever
too.
happens, the fact that then 7th North runs into Provo Power, and so there's gonna have to be a transfer to 8th North at some point if you wanna go further west in Provo, so.
Right.
This has all kinds of implications.
It does. Yep, you're right.
Well, right,
Be prepared for this.
but Joy, right now 800 North ends at 700 East, right? So you have to get over to 700 East if you want to go past that, right? So neither one of these roads is a true east-west road. They kind of both are, and neither are, and that's one of the reasons why we have some of these problems.
Right, and the fact that it connects into University Avenue and cuts over there, it does help some of those stoppages. I think that's it for that one. Go ahead.
Question on this, on the future open.
Yes.
I've noticed that you're putting green space into a lot of these. I wholeheartedly love how are you thinking of doing that? Looking at the existing. Yeah.
Again, with redevelopment, right? So yeah, very, very long range plan. And you can see an example of this in the downtown master plan. We try to identify First West as a pedestrian corridor, and as things have developed, like 400 Element, you've seen pieces of that start to come to life. So yeah, very long range vision here as these older apartments become, the land's worth more than the actual building. We would anticipate those redeveloping, and we would have this plan to say, hey, developer, as part of your project, you need to provide this open space through here. I know development services will be very strong, but I can't speak for the rest of the parties that play here.
The challenge that we have with this is all our underground utilities are not, you got to compensate the developer for allowing for the green space, and so the density goes higher, right? They got to build taller, and we just don't have the sewer and water capacity in this area to facilitate that at this time.
Seems to be a problem. Is there a crossover between the station and the library station? Don't the lands overlap there? The circles around them?
The library station is handled in, we have the string of stations between 400 South and the library have their own plan. So Joaquin's by itself, 2230 is by itself, and then the University Avenue stations are all.
Oh, you're talking about the University Avenue stations?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk to those ones, since we're getting a little short on time.
Yeah, sorry.
No, thank you.
Mark down there. All right.
Page numbers are good in PDF, okay.
All right, so here's exactly what you're talking about, Lisa. So we are combining these three and taking that to MAG as one plan because they're so close together. So you can see how those connect, how the land uses, again, downtown.
Could you scroll up a little bit between the lines?
Yep. The DT zoning is going to take care of a lot of this. It already allows a mix of uses. As you start to get up here, you're kind of on the fringe, so there's going to be some zone changes that come up through there.
Just overlap. Go around the block.
Yeah, you're right.
As far as enhancements for transportation, mobility, this is what we're looking at. And a lot of this came straight out of, bicycle master plan and things like that. We transferred those plans into this and try to find any missing links and identify those.
You got blue links because doesn't have a road that goes through it?
That's the new skin problem,
Oh, okay.
where
Sorry.
we have a easement for public access right to it, but nobody's going to know that or use it. They're going to feel uncomfortable walking through their lobby, right? So that is a problem.
Now I'm gonna have to go do it.
Right, no geofence.
And I think the same could be said for going through the LDS temple.
Great.
Here. I think those are two unfortunate situations that we have to deal with now. But again, striping, so there's your open space, not as much through here because it is the downtown core, a more urban environment. I've got.
Greg, anything you want to add since you've been working on this? Anything you're particularly of note you want us to be aware of?
I think just in general, it's important to pay attention to these kinds of things. I'm glad that the state mandated this effort. I think that the UVX system is a really good transportation system, but it will reach its potential only when the land use really supports it. And it kind of kills me a little bit that the nearest businesses to a lot of our stations are auto dealerships or apartment complexes that are abandoned and derelict, right? It's not the best that it could be. And doing this plan, I hope, will point Provo to this idea that the UVX is our transportation future. We should plan around it, at least as much as we're planning around some of the other the gateway projects or some of the other things we've talked about on this commission in the last few months.
Thanks, Greg, for that. And thank you, Aaron, for filling in for Hannah today.
Thanks for bringing me.
Last item for today, so this has a sidewalk summary social media update.
Yeah, so
So you tell us about it.
we did, video playing for you.
Share first.
So where was this? Was this the
So
Facebook
this
video?
was a project that our team did this summer. We focused on fixing sidewalks from our citizen call log. Anyone that was reporting sidewalk issues, we've got a log of all these different reports that have come in. So our team has gone out and they took before pictures when issue was reported. They went out, looked at the sidewalk, took a picture. Then we fixed 29 of these locations this summer. It was about 1,826 feet of sidewalk. Not shown in the video is 5 ADA ramps that we also did, and then 95 feet of curb and gutter.
And Joseph, just an FYI, so if your sidewalk doesn't look like that, don't expect it to be fixed. There's a huge list that we're already, I don't know, Mickelson knows best on this, but we are behind by a couple of years. So it doesn't mean that we get a call and then it gets
Looking at me, standing your sidewalk.
So you really-
Priority order, that's where we're going. Make it work and then.
Make it
Hang on.
work.
Hang on, I want to point out.
Okay, go
Hang on,
ahead.
I want to point out that I can make a sidewalk look like that in a couple hours with a sledgehammer.
That's what we were just talking about.
So,
We are
well,
not encouraging
let's not,
kids to go take
we'll
my
look through our incentive structures.
But yeah, some of these have been on the log for a while because our log is really big and it takes a while to get to these sidewalks. But we just wanted to highlight that we are trying to get to each of these calls as fast as we can. It just takes a lot of time. How are they prioritized? So they were prioritized by like how bad they were. The ones that were higher hazard issues, this also doesn't include sidewalks that were done as part of our capital improvement projects or other type of projects.
This is a great PR move. Facebook. Yeah, that's great. I know many times over the years, people have mentioned one of TMAC's jobs should be to help get the good news out of the things that are happening that are positive with transportation in Provo. So, yay. Great.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
And then it's officially presented now. Yay.
They're prioritized simply based on condition, but not necessarily on how many pedestrian trips. Yeah, I would just think you probably kind of balance those, right? Yeah, they are. So we created our team created a report, goes through what the issue was and the priority, whether the how it was submitted, if there was a disabled person that often used that sidewalk or had pedestrian traffic. So we did prioritize them based on that when they reported.
Thank you. On behalf of Provo residents, I'm a Provo resident. This is a big deal. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Everyone, We're at 1:30, so we will adjourn and see you all next month.
I will see you on Center Street, I'm sure. I think, I know, that's what I was, like, sometimes. I walk in the air, I'm much more coherent in my emails.
You good, how are you? Good to see you.
Still on the.
No, everything is the same, nothing has changed. No, so we actually didn't have any buyers. So sort of, I don't know if you remember or not, the conversation kind of came up that, hey, we need to have buyers. So we talked about bylaws similar to what the college tried to stick to that and kind of follow most of their bylaws. And we just added like 15 units. And that's why you probably heard that. That was part of the starting, who can start, who can end, how many should be there, how many times it should be there, shouldn't be there, how to do everything.
If you set up a time next week. Yeah.